I mean, you sound beautiful.
Well, yeah, that was it. Yeah, that's But anyway, it's like my philosophy is you can't win, but you can try. So you keep on. I'm sure Bird felt the same way. I'm sure he felt short. He was.
I think that's good. I mean, Denzel Washington says, if you got to fall, fall forward.
Yeah, right. Clark, there's a fine line between the groove and the grave, and all that shit. But anyway, so it's like you know, keep on hanging in there. I can still stand up and play for 2 hours.
Well, that's good. I have to sit down, but I can play for 2 hours. But I do it. I don't even use a neck strap. I put
Yeah,
a chair or a stand in front of me, and play on that.
I practice without a neck strap. I don't like a neck strap.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. I don't
Yeah,
like it now because I have this thing.
yeah. I don't like it because the best position is when you don't have a neck strap. You have to keep your throat relaxed. Well, I just thought of something pretty. You're a Lee Konitz guy. Right?
Right, we were real good friends, and
I have some. I I started to think about things about that because like I figured you would bring up Lee some point and like he was there's a couple stories. One he came to a gig I was doing in Brussels in this club trio. He, he, he stayed the whole gig and I was quiet, and so George Wein calls me in to do something. I said, yeah, can I do a trio? Well, man, like, yeah, yeah. He said, I just spoke to Lee about doing. Lee wanted to do a trio, so I said to Lee, this is George. He said, yeah, you and Lew Tabackin, want to do trios, and Lee says, well, yeah, Lew sounds too much like Don Bias.
yeah, he might have said that.
So so George said, yeah, well, that's why I like him, but it's he's always complaining about when Tommy started to hang with him. I said, I mean, I know Tommy plays pretty strong. He's not exactly a quiet player, right?
Oh yeah.
So what did Lee say about you, man? Like I know he hates tenor players that play loud. Like he really pisses him off. Like he's like so he didn't say. I guess he didn't say anything. I mean, I don't. It's pretty funny, but
He said something the night. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
what's that?
Oh, I was saying he said something to Tommy the night that he met him. I was there.
What did he
Tommy
say?
was playing with my band at this little club in Midtown, that Smith's Bar, I think it was called, or Marie's. Anyway, I had this sextet,
I remember that
and
because Tommy told me about it, and he said you criticized his eighth notes. You were criticized his eighth notes.
he was bouncing his eighth notes at that time. A little
I
too
said,
good for
well,
another.
well.
I told him to try to straighten his eighth notes out. I think it did improve it, though. I think it did help it.
You plan the same scene with people like when you get older. Like sometimes I hear somebody play, and I say if I tell them something, I can help them. And I might volunteer or say, man, if you lift up your head about like a couple inches and don't choke, don't constrict your throat because you keep the strap too far down. Because since Train did that, everybody's doing it. So, like,
Well, so Tommy did say that first time he met Lee, Lee was, let's say, less than complimentary. He told him that he was too loud and that he was, I don't know exactly what it was, but, and Lee actually was a wonderful cat, but he could be quite a curmudgeon, especially later in life.
I just thought of something. Joey Barron called me a few years ago. I think he did a gig at Bruno with him, with Lee and Gary Peacock.
Uh huh.
So, so Joey called me and said, yeah, I'm going to have breakfast at Barney Greengrass on
Right
Amsterdam.
up in Lee's neighborhood. That was his spot.
Yeah, with Lee.
Yeah.
You want to come? I said, I don't know if I want to deal with that. I think he could be a pain in the ass. So anyway, I finally decided, yeah, I should go, man. I mean, it's going to be something funny is going to happen. I show up I think it was supposed to be 11 o'clock. I showed up at 11:15 or something, and I'm looking for them. I can't find them. They're not there. And I wait around, but I called Joe. He was hard to locate. He's like, finally, I left a message, and he called me, and I said, "What? I guess something really weird must have happened." I kind of, and I was right. He was sitting down, and somebody had a cell phone. You know,
Oh no!
and
Oh
he
yes.
went through the whole number about you shouldn't, it's very ignorant of you and disrespectful to have a cell phone, and started a whole big thing. They kicked him out.
Oh my! And that was his spot too. They would
Yeah.
have put up with a lot from him there because they knew him.
Well, one time he invited me to dinner, 86th Street, near his place, and we ran into Bob Belden. Somehow, I was in his neighborhood. So we go to this kind of weird ass funky diner. It's not a place I would go to have dinner.
I remember that place. Yeah,
It's like a Greek kind of. So we go there, and
Amsterdam Avenue.
I'm trying to be cool. It's not my idea of a dinner. But so, and I tried to get a bottle of wine, and it was really a trip. And anyway, we go through the whole thing, and he goes, the bill comes, and he left to make a phone call, and the bill came, and I paid the bill, which wasn't that big a deal because it wasn't exactly, John George. So anyway, it's like, I said, what, and then he disappeared. He was gone, I'm like, what happened, man? His dinner invitation was he was the Benny Goodman of his generation.
Yeah, he was strange that way. I mean, though he often he was good with me with dinners. That was good. Sometimes I would pay. Sometimes we kind of took turns, so that was kind of an understood thing with us. But his Scientology period was when I had a little bit of difficulty with that.
Mhm.
Because there was a period where he was so into Scientology, he only wanted to hang out with Scientologists, and he tried to get me to get into it, and I did meet with them once and decided this was decidedly not for me. But anyway, I was wondering, when you were out on the coast, did you have many dealings with Warren Marsh? Did you get to know Warren at all? What was
We made a record.
You did? I didn't know that. I know Kritzlieb and he did, but
Just came out it was around the same time as Pete Klitzlieb's did, but mine was like a low budget. They did a real complicated overdose of all kinds of shit.
Steely Dan had produced their record, as I recall.
This is a Japanese company. In fact, it just came out as a CD in Japan, whatever that means. But I have an interesting story about that, actually. Because I always, I would go hear Martin, a unique player, obviously, and a lot of respect for what he did. And meanwhile, so we do this date, and I think it came out quite well. It was like the idea was to be two different sounding tenor players, which is pretty.
That's natural. That's what you were.
Yeah, exactly. So totally opposites. And what I had so much respect for. I didn't, it felt natural to me. And anyway, we do the album. I thought it was pretty successful, and comes to I had a studio in a garage in Los Angeles, converted to a studio. So we're listening to tapes. He wanted to hear the tapes, it shows you how well it was, like the late 70s. And there was a trombone player there too, Bill Reichenbach. We're smoking dope and listening to the tapes. And Warren said, I couldn't believe what he said. He said, there's only one way to play the tenor sax. I said, how is that? It's like Prez. So what about Hawkins? Well, that's the black way of playing. They bend notes. So I that's the most absurd thing I ever heard. And then he goes on to say, yeah, Sonny Rollins plays too long, and John Coltrane bites the horn.
Bites the horn.
Bites the horn.
Fights the horn.
Fights, you know, like fights the
Yeah,
horn.
fights. Yeah.
Anybody fights the horn. Well, Warren fights the horn. He's not exactly fluent in the low registers, but you know, he's kind of like. I was shocked, man. He went through this whole tirade. I said, boy, I'm so happy we didn't have this discussion before the date. I would have really got. I would have out of breath. I would be so aggressive, but you know, and then I always felt that I always liked that music. You know, I could listen to that, you know, Tristano shit. You know, and like it was kind of special, but I always felt that they're trying to take the blackness, take the blues out of the music. They're trying to sanitize the music, and like
You know, there's an aspect of that. I think that's definitely valid. Walter Davis Jr. said what he didn't dig about it was there was too much one. Like that orange line marshmallow. All the phrases are on one, you know, there's a lot of one.
the
So
point
what
is that
was
a lot of drummers couldn't play with Warren. You know, like I had to get Larry Bunker played with him, so he knew how to play with him. A lot of the drummers they just ching 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 ching, just keep time and don't listen to him because it throws them off. You know, in fact, there's a story about it, another story, the Terry Gibbs story. But anyway, it's like,
what's that story?
well, I got a Terry Gibbs asked me to do a gig with his band. I hadn't been in LA. He had a gig, so I took the gig, and then I couldn't do it. Something came up, and you know, wasn't a casual situation, and so I had spoken to Warren. I said, you know, I have supposed to do this gig. Can you do it? Yeah, yeah. So I mentioned it to Terry. I said, you know, I got Warren Marsh to cover it. I don't want Warren Marsh. He went really bananas. Man. So what's wrong? You know, I mean, and I asked around about it, and there's some kind of story about doing this all-star session, something metronome all-stars, one of those kind of things. And then he had to come in after Warren, and Warren turned, you know, made the time, turned the time around where, you know, he couldn't find Warren. Like,
I think it's that How High the Moon solo that's very famous.
yeah,
It's a hell of a solo he plays on it.
yeah. But anyway, so, but you know, with Warren, it's like, I mean, I only know him like my experience was just playing with him. If you actually Lee liked that recording, he,
Uh-huh.
he liked it. Somebody made him listen to it. Like the guy who was writing the liner notes made him listen to it. Oh yeah, well, they
You
both
play much counterpoint with him? Was there quite a bit of
Hmm?
counterpoint playing with Warren on that record?
Wasn't enough. I tried to do more, but it wasn't enough for my taste. Should have been more interaction.
Yeah, because
But
he wasn't very fond of it. He told me he hated Mozart. I remember he loved
hated
Bach and his grace, and I said, well, there's a Mozart piece, a Sinfonia Concertante for violin and viola, and some of those double cadenzas remind me a little bit of you and Lee. He said, no, no, you know, I can't stand Mozart. And he was the only person I ever met that literally couldn't stand Mozart. I mean,
Yeah, that's pretty funny, man.
you know, he was a hack. He was a hack. He just repeated, played the same shit all the time, and like, well, you know, and I was like, oh, that's unusual.
Yeah,
But
well,
Rollins loves him. Sonny Rollins and I were talking about that, and he said he was very, you know, he really was always a big fan of Warren.
the Hawkins is the Bach. He was that was his thing. Listen to J.S. Bach. He said that's the shit. You know,
Yeah, did you get to know Hawk to some extent as well?
not really. Yeah, my problem was I you know I was like kind of like in awe of some people or insecure. So I should have been more like, like Tommy would always ingratiate himself with all his heroes, like Hank Jones, and he, he'd go to Seattle, hang out with man, and I always like,
Hobson.
yeah, I'm always kind of like funny about it, but
You made a nice record with Hank. Desert Lady, is it?
yeah, that was my first Concord record, Hank and
Dave Holland?
Steve Holland and shit. My name, that's my biggest problem in life is remembering names.
I think that happens with age. I remember everything else.
But anyway, it's cool. Yeah, I did a tour in Japan with four saxophones, with Frank West Jr. and Howard Land.
Oh,
Interesting, interesting.
combination.
Yeah,
Harold
yeah.
Lamb was frightening, man. He was,
Well, anyway, it was like they made a video disc and a video thing, and I played My Ideal with Hank, and actually I played pretty good. I actually, most of the time on this particular, I think I connected phrases really good, except
oh,
one time I tried to do something with my brain. You know, I tried when
watch out for that.
I was like just like in Japanese painting it's called sumie painting. It's like
Right.
you play a line, an unbroken line, and you keep it going. And I kept it really going pretty good because Hank, I mean, I'm not a, I don't use pianos a lot because most of the time they interfere with the line.
Well, you got a lot of harmony too. You really understand
I
changes.
try
You
to, I
play a
try,
little bit like a piano player on saxophone, which I do too.
yeah, I mean, I imply the harmony, and that's another story I just saw or something. But anyway, Hank, the way of playing is perfect, and complimentary and just just perfect. And I really did it. I really actually did it. And I scored a 98. 2 points that I knew where I fucked up. I didn't. I tried to do something which I shouldn't have tried to do. I just didn't.
My life is so full of that. But
I broke. I broke the line, but so Hank was, kind of like special. Really definitely for that. When did I did an album with Dave Holland and Hank. Man, it was. I did it. Actually, I did a duet tour with Dave Holland once.
oh, that's interesting.
Man, like he's perfect. He's
Wow.
like
Yeah, I never played with him.
he's like when he put like okay, obviously playing straight ahead. And we were playing in. I was playing in Canada again, Edmonton, and on the festival, and he came in with Richard Mulholland Abrams. You know him, piano player.
Well, from Chicago,
So
the art ensemble.
they're
Yeah.
doing a concert, and Richard wrote this really hard shit, and I was like, so anyway, they finished it. I said, hey Dave, if you're not busy, come down to my gig and play a little bit if you feel like. So the two of them come down, and Dave, bars the bass and the piano, and Richard started playing the piano, and Richard wanted to play like old shit, and he played like it was so great, like he played like really old-fashioned piano, would be like maybe in two keys, but it'd be like like real old style, like okay, like Sun Ra was like an old style piano player,
Right. He was
and he played like, and
disciple.
I just played, and it was a great. We played like over an hour, and it was totally fantastic. And so then I got to know Dave, and I asked if he wanted to go to Japan with me. And it's supposed to be a trio, and then the promoter said, "No, let's do a duo because people want to hear a duo."
Hmm.
Didn't need anybody. He's perfect, man. His time is perfect. His harmony is perfect. Uh, the sound is big. He didn't use an amplifier, and man,
Did that get recorded?
No, nobody. It wasn't recorded. Somebody had a video of it and they lost it, but it wasn't recorded. But
That's
it
a shame.
was really, it was really kind of, you never know how things work out, but it was like,
Yeah, that was,
everybody knows it for the ostinatos and all the odd meters and everything, but his straight ahead shit is just totally amazing.
yeah. I mean, I imagine he can do anything. He's a phenomenal musician. He is. Now, did you know? I'm thinking um, another person. I just wanted two people I wanted to get to that I know you had some experience with. I think I'm not sure about one, but Sal Nistico.
No, I don't have any experience with Sound Institute actually, because our paths like diverged. Like I was playing in this group in New York, and I moved to LA, and he joined the group, but we never. I was obviously respected his playing, but
But you never diverged. I mean,
I
never got together.
actually,
Now, Joe Henderson's big band, you were part of
I was,
that, and you must have had some experience with Joe.
yeah.
Um, what was that relationship like?
Oh, very interesting. Like, well, I played in his band, and it was an interesting band because Joe wrote like the way he wrote was like difficult to play in a sense. There's normal. There was the music was great. Like he was playing so great in those days. He was really strong, and like he was powerful. And
This
we
was the late 60s,
yeah,
right?
late '60s. Believe it or not, I was playing with Clark's band. I was playing with Duke Pearson's band. It was basically my main band, I think. Uh, I played a lot with with Thad and Mel, Chuck Israel. I played in Chuck Israel's band. I played in all these bands, and I never played in big bands in my life.
Huh.
You know, why am I doing? I'm getting all these calls? I'm not a great
You
reader.
played all the reeds, not just because you're also great, but I mean, also,
Well, I played. I mean, I could see Chuck Israel because I played the flute, and he wrote a lot of stuff for me to pretty hard stuff to play. But the other stuff, the sax thing. But anyway, yeah, Joe. I really like. I really. I sent him in on a gig one. I sent him in. We used to sub for each other. Uh, to Pearson gig. I sent him on a gig at the Vanguard, playing for the Door, and the bread was really bad. You know, he really got pissed off at me. I said, "Man, Joe, man, I used to play in his band with $3 a night sometimes and just give it back, And I said, I was on I had a gig. I was understood that I would pay you, properly, for it. But and uh, what I missed that gig. What I heard was that Stan Getz came in. Stan Getz wanted to play, and there were two, Frank Foster and Joe. So he, Stan didn't have a horn or a mouthpiece or anything. So he has a choice. He decided because Joe had I guess playing a rubber mouthpiece, or he was playing, so he decided.
right to
Yeah,
Auto 5.
he was playing a Selmer. He played a Selmer D. It's close to mouthpiece as a Selmer D.
Right.
Yeah, he played strong, man. Like he blew hard, and like so he decides to use play Joe's horn, and I wasn't there, but I heard the story where it was like really rough because, if you're used to really, people don't understand how strong Stan was. He's a pretty hard setup, and he had a lot of resistance happening. But
Number 4.5 and 5 reeds. Yes.
yeah, he could maintain that pitch the way he did. So anyway, he picked the wrong horn. That was the thing. If he played Frank's horn, if Frank used heavy equipment, probably would have been a lot better. But anyway, so yeah, Joe would call me in the middle of the night sometime and say, "Hey man, I got this. Can you do this gig?" Blah blah blah. And I checked. Said, "No, I can't do it." And he'd still be talking like for like another hour. I'm sure he was doing something that stimulated his
Conversation.
yeah. But anyway, no, I really loved the way he played it, and you know, yeah, he was a special guy, man. He was incredibly smart, and he was anyway.
Yeah, he was a brilliant person, and
He was studying Chinese the last time.
he was what, studying Chinese.
He'd be like he'd be contracted to play 45-minute set. As soon as that 45 minutes hit, he's gone to his room, you know, whatever. He was like, he would tell me, he said, man, he got really popular, obviously, you know, the Lush Life record, Stan Getz Died, and they were looking for a star to promote.
Right, there are certain slots, and some people, you know, you can play great, but if you never fill that slots in the cachet.
Yeah, he was there. And then, so he got really busy, man. He says, man, why didn't it happen 20 years ago? You know, I'm too tired. I'm too tired.
I know Joe said to me, he said, you know, Bobby, call me Bobby sometimes, for the first time in my life, I'm booked a year and a half ahead.
Yeah.
He said, this has never happened before. He said, funny how it is when you make a couple of records, and they may not even be your best records,
Exactly.
but they get the right thing behind them, they get the right publicity, they get all this, and all of a sudden I'm in a position I was never in before. And I said, I remember, Joe, there was a period of 3 or 4 years where I was looking for a Joe Henderson record, and I found one that you did in Japan, but other than that, I couldn't find anything. He said, that was 9 years.
Yeah, yeah.
I said, ah.
Yeah, like you know, I was doing this group with put together a group for Freddie Hubbard All Stars. They were trying to, since Dizzy died and you know Miles whatever he was doing, I guess Miles is still alive. But anyway, they're looking for a star. They were trying to elevate Freddie to that certain other level, you know, like Dizzy Gillespie level.
Right. But had Freddie hurt his chops already, or?
No, this is way before. No, his chops. This is like 80, mid 80s.
Oh, okay.
And anyway, so I mean, so they were trying to do that to him, and he didn't know how to handle it properly.
Well, you know, as a friend of mine said about Chet Baker, there are some people that just can't take yes for an answer.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, Chet,
You know?
yeah, Chet Baker.
And Freddie was sort of like that too.
Yeah, well, Freddie was so aggressive, man. Like, yeah, he used to try to kill me, man.
Literally, you mean musically, or?
Well, no, you know, we be playing like we play like trading, you know, and I wouldn't give in, man. I'd rather die. I'd rather fucking have a heart attack and bleed. I would never stop, you know. And that was his modus. That was his whole thing. He was into like if he's playing with another horn player, he had to challenge them. He had to kill them, and that was one of his downfalls. It's like we're doing this gig in Japan at the festival, and one of these mix and match festivals. I was there with Freddie and you know kind of an all-star group, and so we're having lunch, and one of the guitar players Freddie was going to play with him, and he starts passing out music, and he passes out the chart to me. I'm not scheduled to do this gig, so I said, Freddie, you want me to play tonight or not? It's up to you. He said, no, man, don't play tonight. I want to cool it.
I want to cool it.
It's like, like Clark Terry would say, hey, man, why don't you come and play with me tonight? I want to cool it. So that's a different perspective. Freddie's perspective is if you have another horn, you have to, you know, kill, you know, you have to. You say, man, I gotta play. I gotta play with, you know, you have to play with a certain trumpet player or whatever, Witten, or because you have to play with Witten. I said, well, cool it, man, lighten up on me. Said, what do you mean, man? I said, well, you know, like you don't have to kill everybody. You know, it's like you play with Faddis, he has to play high notes. Let Faddis play the high notes. You play the low notes.
Yeah, right. But that wasn't
It's like
you know,
it's like
that
a
old bebop mentality.
yeah, it's amazing. Like
I mean, Ira Sullivan was was my mentor. I met Ira when I was 13, and Ira was helpful to me, and we'd spend hours and hours. You know, he'd come over my house. We'd practice together, even as a teenager. He'd let me sit in with him. But as soon as you got on the bandstand with Ira, he turned into a different animal. Like
Yeah.
he'd want to kill you. I'd say, Ira, why do you do that to me? I was like, 16, 17. I say, Ira, you already can beat me up. I mean, what are you trying to prove? And then he would say, I'm getting you ready to go to New York.
Yeah, right. We did an all-star thing in one tour, and we're in Germany when it's ski, and it's like gymnasium kind of thing. Shelley Manne was a drummer, and Lee was on it actually.
Oh.
Anyway, Ira was on it, and then he made a mistake of, I think he was a leader in the sense. He was calling tunes and stuff. So anyway, we decided on a tune, and Shelley, Shelley said, "Look, this is a terrible place to play. It's hard to play. Don't play anything fast. We just play nice tempos and
Because the
get
acoustics were
music are terrible. It's a gym, like a big gym. So we did it. We do the gig, man. We get through it, and everything is really cool. All of a sudden, Ira starts playing Cherokee really fast, and Shelley, I never seen him do it before. He took the drum sticks and threw it on the drum and split. He left, and everybody Lee left behind, and I didn't want to give him the satisfaction, so I stayed up and played with him, but I never saw Shelley like really get me because he was such a
Did the piano player and bass player stay, or they?
bass player. Yeah, the bass player stayed. Jamaican guy, that was his name. Anyway, it was like, yeah, that's his tendency. I understand that tendency. Sometimes you get frustrated, and like you're holding it in, and then all of a sudden you really want to let it out. You just been basically warming up, and then you really want to play, and then he just couldn't hold back. He just started playing.
Yeah, he was like that. And also that Chicago, there's a certain mentality I think that came out of Chicago, where a friend of mine said Chicago was such that if you dropped a nickel off of the Wrigley building, chances were 10-1 you'd hit a tenor player.
Yeah, right. Yeah, true. It was a lot. But he was kind of an amazing guy. I mean,
Yeah, Clifford Jordan had that Chicago competitiveness too.
I don't know. I didn't hear that. I mean, I always saw him as a melodist, like a melodic. I always was impressed by his melody.
I was too. Yeah.
And I never heard him get into the aggression. Maybe I missed something, but no, he was.
Oh, it wasn't aggressive. It was just, I think it was a competitiveness that made you want to play your best.
Oh yeah, well,
that way, because he was there to not suffer any fools.
no, he was. Yeah, he was cool. I remember when he went out, like, he decided not to do anything, and so just hang out every night. He tried to sing Lush. He was singing Lush Life, and
As a waltz.
Yeah, whatever he was doing, he was kind of, yeah, he was special guy.
He was. Well, it was glad that we got to experience all these special cats. And Michael Moore, you used to play with Mike Moore, didn't you?
Oh yeah, Michael Moore, yeah, right, yeah. We had a group with Joey Barron trio, Michael Moore, Joey Barron.
Yeah, I heard you guys. It was really good.
Yeah, he's like. In fact, I started playing one of Michael's tunes recently. He wrote a tune called "The Lilter."
Hmm.
He was pissed off that he didn't think Irish people got enough credit for the contribution to jazz music.
That sounds like Michael Moore.
So he wrote this tune, but the doo it up, she do it up. Supposed to imagine a little lilters. So, but it's kind of a cute tune. I play unison with the bass. We used to play unison bass. It's kind of cool. Yeah, Michael was interesting. That's a very interesting character.
Yeah, he was. And I worked with him both with Chet and with Konitz. So we had that. He was one of the most lyrical bass players. I mean, he would play prettier than a saxophone.
Yeah, I used to stay in his. One time I stayed. He had a little uh, apartment in the village, and he kept it.
Prince for one of those streets.
Yeah, and Italian neighborhood, and I stayed there sometimes, and he'd be giving a lesson, and you always make them play oracle, and make them play the melody oracle, so you can hear, you know, how the melody should be played and everything. Very interesting. It's quite a teacher,
Wow. Yeah, he taught me a lot too. I mean, just con- conversations with Mike were lessons.
Michael.
Just
Yes. Yeah, well, that's a whole book there, man. A lot of really interesting characters you brought up out of the. Yeah, we should drive around, man. Like, oh, doing gigs, man. Like, used to be able to go on tours. Used to go to like, you know, San Francisco and go to Northern California, into Canada, West Coast Canada, and because you could play in jazz societies like on a Tuesday or Wednesday. Now everything is what does exist is a weekend. You know, so how can you
then
do
you're
it?
out in the middle of the country with 5 days off.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean,
Well, it's like it's a shame that because it wasn't so much. It was that there were places to play and not a lot of bread or anything, but places to play music for people who appreciated it most. Generally speaking.
well, now we've got the internet, changed everything too. One other thing I wanted to mention was, I mean, you've actually had a very successful marriage, and that's unusual in our profession too. To have a lasting union with a lady who happens to be a genius, and there's a lot of talent in your house, and you met in New York. Is that where you originally met, and then moved out to California, or could you talk a little bit about that? Because I feel that that should be.
We met in New York, basically during the time I mentioned about I joined Clark Terry's All-Star Band. I had a gig at the half note, and Don Freeman was the piano player.
I
And,
believe it.
yeah, so Don took off, and um, Clark's manager called Toshiko to sub for him. So the way the bandstand was set up in the half note, kind of the rhythm section uh, wasn't with the band. It was like I'm trying to remember. It's like in the bandstand was in the bar, and then the piano and
We're
drum.
at the bar. The piano was on the far left or right.
Kind of
Far
like
right, I think. Yeah.
so anyway. So Clark starts to set off with like a tune like a D flat blues. So I was pretty much in. I was like I was at that point. That was the time I was trying to get into Clark's you know spirit, and I could do the D flat blues pretty good. Like the D flat has a certain for tenor players a certain character. No matter what you do, it's that's another story. I with Jimmy Hughes, but something about the playing the D flat blues. So I'm playing it, and I'm doing.
That one bass hit with Train with Miles, where they play that very up tempo
Yeah, well, that's a different thing.
bass
But
hit, but it was,
the slower blues and D flat, you're talking, Paul Gonsalves, bias and all that shit. But anyway, so she hears this sound. She can't see who's playing. She knew it wasn't George Coleman. He was the other tenor player. She knew it wasn't him. So she calls her. She was planning a concert at Town Hall. She calls her contractor. I found a tenor player I want for my concert. Uh, so she described me to, oh, that's Lew Tabackin. He's a new guy in town. So she hires me to do her gig. And then I canceled because I went on the road with Thad and Mel. And I knew that Eddie Daniels was available. So I knew that it was cool. But that's how we met. And then he started rehearsing, started to get together and do some small group things. Reggie Johnson, I remember, and then
Sure.
we did an album live at the top of the gate with Ron Carter and Mickey Roper and Kenny Dorham.
Really?
Yeah, it was
Toshiko.
yeah, it was her album. So then we hooked up, and then well, it's a really lot of long stories, but I was by then I was playing with gigs with Doc Severn, and I got caught up in I was kind of a victim. You probably were too, a victim of the Black Revolution, because
Yeah, at times.
it was good for support of the Black Revolution, but it didn't do me any good. There was no opportunities really. Like Duke Pearson was trying to get me contract. They weren't doing any white people.
That's true.
So it was like that was pretty bad, and Doc Severinsen the band moved to California, and anyway, so I could write a book about that period of all the weird situations. We don't have
It's
them.
an interesting subject. I know it was a.
But anyway, his bass player John B. Williams. Did you know him?
I know who he was. I think he's from San Francisco. Or
Well,
he's
I knew him in New York, and I don't know where he was from. He's in L.A. now, but
Mike Wolf. Yeah, it's a California guy. I know Michael Wolf, my friend, piano player.
yeah.
So I did a lot with him.
Anyway, he was playing with Doc, and he moved to California. He said, "Hey man, it's great out here. I'm working all the time, and blah 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 blah." So I figured, well, maybe I should move to L.A. Maybe it might not be perfect, but might be able to change the whole situation. There wasn't quite a big Black Revolution in L.A. It's like,
Well, had you been working a lot in Europe prior to that? Is that where you found a lot of your work?
excuse me.
In that period of the '60s, when New York was kind of a weird situation, especially if you were white, did you find yourself working a lot in Europe? Is that where you first started to kind of?
No, I didn't know that wasn't the case. I didn't work. I didn't do anything in Europe actually. I had enough little things, but uh, I was stuck. Like okay, playing at the Apollo Theater with Duke Pearson's band. We play for Nancy Wilson, and then we do a set, and then play for Nancy. And Randy Brecker and I couldn't play any solos. We couldn't stand up and play any solos.
Really, the Apollo.
Yeah, I'm playing in Academy of Music in Philadelphia with same situation, and there was a solo in my book, and I played it, and people complaining, how come the black guy didn't play the solo? I mean, it got so it's totally ridiculous, and like so, I was kind of stuck. Basically, I could still play $5 gigs, with
Right. Yeah.
with the Joe Henderson. So anyway, moved out there, and it was we moved out there, and at that time Toshiko's daughter joined us she lived in Japan until she was 6, and then she came. Uh, well, she lived in Japan, and then she came and joined us when she was like 6 or 7, and then so anyway, then we moved to Los Angeles. I was I was kind of guaranteed a few nights a week on the Tonight Show. And, so it was cool. Economically it was good, but musically I couldn't quite. It didn't work for me. I was like, I always felt like if I was on the bandstand, it was me and them. I couldn't quite come to terms with it until John Hurd, bass player, brought um, Billy Higgins to my place. and we played a little bit. After about 8 bars, I said, "Oh man, it's not me, it's them." You know, like I was cool. I felt like
Well,
everything was,
John,
yeah, everything was cool. And then, so I did,
John was an amazing bass player.
yeah, well, I mean,
When he was with Ahmad, and then he was with Basie.
yeah,
And when he was in New York, he would always find out where I was playing, and he'd come sit in with me. And it was always it made me smile when he would walk in. He was an artist, right? A visual artist, and he
yeah,
used to make these canes, and he
he
would
used
carve people onto his canes.
to make pipes too.
Uh huh. Yeah, he put me on one of his canes. I was honored.
Right, you've got a John Hurricane, and
John Hurd cane, but yeah, he was wonderful.
Kane.
Until you found John Hurd and Billy Higgins, that's a reason not to move.
Well, we made an album together called Black and Tan Fantasy, and uh, and then, well, I played with Shelley Manne a lot. Shelley started a group, and he was great too. So so things started to change where I one thing always try to do is I always try to turn a negative into a positive. So I'm not grooving, so I have to find a way to do it. So by being in LA, well, we started the band. That's another thing. And being in LA was like I finally created my own identity. And now in New York, I'm playing with everybody, and I didn't have any my own gigs or anything. And there, was able to I became an entity, some kind of, I had made a few records, and so it was cool. And then the Doc Severinsen thing kind of subsidized my jazz career. And then when I had enough, I just quit. And that was, the band started to do okay. We started to do tours and stuff, made some records. Anyway, so and in 10 years in LA was enough, moved back to New York, and it was cool. That's when I heard Vince's thing. I remember moving back to New York, 82, and walking down the street in the park, and I hear this group playing bebop. It's like alto player. Sounds really good, young alto player and trumpet player. I said, shit, man, this is better than the stuff that's happening at Sweet Bass and all these places with, playing all this out music, like at that time.
Those new owners drove me out of New York when they started hiring Arthur Blythe and Chico Freeman and all.
Yeah, all these guys playing,
I didn't relate to.
And I said, shit, man, this is much more happening on the street. And Vincent was playing, and I had met him. I have to check with him about the chronology of it, but I remember him coming to some of our rehearsals in Los Angeles with the big band, and because he took a couple lessons with Dick Spencer, our lead alto player.
Wow.
And so I'm trying to figure out how all that tied into what I heard on your interview, And anyway, so that was kind of interesting. And then, Vincent started to do okay. I remember he sat in on a gig I was doing, and it was kind of interesting. And Reggie Johnson was there, and Vince sat in, and Reggie said, "Who's this guy, man? He's really good." I said, "Well, I'll introduce you to him." I said, "Vince, this guy is, great bass player, and he wants to do he's thinking about recording you." And Vince said, "Oh yeah, well, I got a lot of stuff going. I got a lot of offers and stuff." So he was like, "I said, well, cool, man." But yeah, we become pretty friendly in the last few years. So
I remember Vince from his playing in the street days. I met him, at that time. We practiced together and stuff. And
he sounded great, man. Like now that's why you get to play strong. I like playing outdoor. I always thought about playing more gigs outside. I just have my case, and I always tell if I have a student or something, I say, look, pretend you're on the street by yourself and you want some people to give you some bread, your case is open. So you play and you have to make them feel like what you're playing is complete. You're playing by yourself, but they should be able to hear the melody, they should hear the harmony, and it's all, so you're not just, I won't use the right word, but you're just not like fucking around. You're just like, you're actually playing music, even though you're by yourself. And then when you do have a rhythm section, it should be easier. You're thinking ahead all the time.
Well, Sonny Rollins told me, he said, when you get up on the bandstand, he said, you have an inner rhythm section. You have an inner drummer and an inner piano player and an inner bass player. He said, and when you have those things complete inside you, he said, rhythm sections will love you.
Well, that's very interesting. Like that's true. That's what I try
You're
to.
an orchestra. That's how he put it. You come on the stand, you're an orchestra. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to, as a young person, to spend so many hours, hearing him at different, couple different groups and stuff. And I learned a lot about compositional technique and, how you play over a long period of time. You have to control the intensity. You have to control the motifs. It's almost like I was playing. I just started. I was playing in Canada. Phil Nimmons, you know him?
I know who he is very well.
Anyway, I'm playing. I don't know this guy. I'm playing this club, and he's at the bar, and he says to me, "Are you a composer?" I said, "No, not really." He says, "But you play like a composer." And I never thought about that. And it was all those years of listening to Sonny Rollins and trying to put phrases together and connect shit and like bring back ideas. I absorbed a lot of that as a young person. It's still inside of me. Whether
Yeah, I hear that in your playing, which I like.
it's like so. Oh, what do you think of this? In California, it's one of the music school things, summer programs, and with Charles McPherson, and really good alto player from living in California. Anyway, Eric, Eric Alexander was doing this kind of a class kind of thing, and he's kind of interviewing. He said, "What is your harmonic concept?" And it caught me. I mean, I could ask you the same thing. I said, what is a harmonic concept? I don't have a harmonic concept. I'm not a piano player. Or I just try to connect a few notes. I'm trying to connect a few phrases. It's not. I don't think that's a harmonic. I was stumped. He stumped me. And when I was young, I used to try to practice for hours trying to experiment with, once you realize there's only two chords, there's a tonic chord and a dominant chord, you're kind of set free, and you have all this freedom within the dominant chord to play almost any note you want, and just how to resolve it to the tonic chord or whatever. And that's became a way to, but I never thought of anything about, if someone asked you that, what would you say?
Well, I do actually have a kind of harmonic concept.
Okay, what is it?
It's sort of, well, it's basically that there is a tonic,
Yeah.
and a song is the way Bill Evans actually put it, which I thought was very good, is the story of a tonic and chords expanding away from the tonic and contracting toward the tonic. And that there's two twin keys. This is my theory, not theory, but my concept of it, that are like twins that play together through harmony. It's every one, like if you realize that the flatted fifth key has all the notes that one doesn't have, the other has. And so if you want to use all 12 notes, then it's interesting to understand the diatonic functions of all of the 12 notes in both keys, and how, for instance, when you have a a G seventh, you also have, which is in the key of C, you also have D flat 7, which is the key of G flat. So somehow those notes usually transition from the tonic key to the flatted fifth key and then resolve to the tonic.
Yeah.
And then there are, and then, I'm sorry, then you can practice incrementally. When you see a tune, you take a certain progression in the song and you understand your options, which there are tonic options, there are flatted fifth options, there are minor third options, there are diminished options. And then through that, through not trying to play the whole Torah, just taking little parts of the tune and understanding everything that you can possibly do on the first 4 bars of It Could Happen to You, every way you can listen, look at it and hear it harmonically, then you can go on. And, you know, that you can always cycle and play secondary dominants. You can turn a 2 minor 7 into a 2 dominant 7th, and then use the flatted fifth of that, and you have the half step key. And there are all these equations that are possible. And then you forget all that shit and play.
Yeah, well, that's it. But that's the point. That's basically what I did. My, you know,
I hear you.
I was like, you know, I was, this was a Coltrane, you know, like the minor third relationships and all that stuff, you know, like C7, E flat 7, G flat 7th, and kind of A7. It's all that. And then like, and then you realize that it's, well, it's like 12 notes. So wait a minute, find different, you know, like, but I didn't think of it as a harmonic concept. I mean, you thought of it in a more organized way. I was trying to take the magnetic, the magnetism is how you resolve shit. You know, like how this note wants to go up, this wants to go down. This, you know, like
This is also a very important thing. You must learn where the music wants to go.
yeah,
And if you know where the music is telling you it wants to go, that's when you just relax and follow the spirit and get there. You know, that's the important part. But in order to know where the music wants to go, there are some things that you have to understand voice leading, whether you understand it intuitively or intellectually or both.
I don't know it intellectually. Because I never really studied. But it's like kind of like you realize the way things go. Like Jimmy never says it doesn't go that way, or it does go that way. I mean, it's like it's just
Right.
it's a magnetism. There's a way things want to go, and you have to. I don't know, like trying to. So I started to think about, you know, well, Ornette Coleman had this harmonic thing that nobody understands, doesn't mean anything. But I was thinking about it. Sometimes I'm playing and I say, hey, I know what my harmonic concept is. You know, playing a lot of fucked up notes, but trying to make melodies out of them. And so that's harmonic, my harmonic concept. Sometimes I try to think of stretching the notes that I want to play, as long as I can resolve them properly, you know. But I had this one space where I could do a lot of shit.
You know, I think having had a lot of students over the years who really didn't have a clue about this stuff, you know, I had to kind of find a way to make it clear to them. Now, on the other hand, it's a danger, because it's like the reason Sonny Rollins told me he didn't teach, but we could practice together, which we ended up doing a bit of. But the thing was, I say, the reason he doesn't teach was he didn't want to look too closely at his process, which I thought is good, because when you start teaching, the danger is you start looking so closely at your process that you lose your spontaneity, you know. But
I mean, that's the reason why people can't. I mean, people can copy Sonny Rollins, you know, because they can emulate, you know, the idiosyncratic shit, you know, and stuff. But there's no system to it. There's no system like, you know, where Coltrane had a system, so it's different.
But Sonny does have a system in his own way. For instance, when Sonny does this on There Will Never Be Another You, wait, my reed is a little broken. I mean, a little warped. Yeah. So if he's doing this, he's taking that half step key right there and inserting that B minor 7th, E 7th, right before that B flat minor, E flat that's going into
Yeah,
the
what
A
that's
flat.
Coleman Hawkins, and you know, like basically.
Right. Well, that's the secondary dominant stuff. You know what I mean?
You know,
And Sonny has mastered the turnaround. That's what Albert Daly told me one time. He said, "You know what makes Sonny different than all these other cats?" And I said, "This and that and that and that." He said, "Well, all those, but this, he has absolutely mastered the turnaround." And
good.
putting these turnarounds, you do it yourself. I mean, whether you know you're doing it or not, I think you know, but you know what I mean. You just don't analyze it. But I hear it in you all the time. That's why I think you don't need a piano player, because you're playing all that, and that could actually conflict with the way you're thinking.
Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah, that's why the piano. You have to change when you play with the piano.
But
I,
with voice leading, for instance, when Bird goes, I ran out of breath, but he does this in Relaxing the Camarillo in the first four bars of the blues. He goes, so he's really here. So 1 1 7 4 4 minor in the second bar. That's the seven to the third, seven to the third. That kind of thing. Or when he does that on Coco, he's playing the ninth or the natural 13th of the five to the flat 13th. He's playing that line.
that's what but that's it was a TV show and it had Dizzy and a whole bunch of people, Max Roach, and Dizzy said, my wife used to tell me, how come you don't play those beautiful melodies like Bird played?
Oh, really?
It all comes out beautiful, whatever, however you're thinking about it. But anyway, so now I know almost know your harmonic concept and because I was stumped. I didn't have a harmonic concept. And like,
Well, I disagree with you. I think you do.
I said I have a
Um,
harmonic concept, hopefully, but harmonic concept, I mean, yeah, I guess I never thought of it. I never thought, like, maybe if you're a piano player, you might think of it differently. But as a horn player that's not attached to the piano, I think of it, I think of it totally differently. It's like, now that you bring it up, I'm thinking about, when playing, I'm just thinking about, trying to find notes that make sense and define the harmony. And I'm not thinking so much of any technical reality, whatever. Sometimes I open shit up a little bit, but I try to be as natural as I possibly be.
well, I think you do that. And I think I try to do the same thing. But sometimes in my practicing, I wanted to find a more focused direction.
Uh-huh.
Like I just didn't, the main thing is to get into your stream of consciousness. That's
Yeah.
where we're aiming for, I think. And we
Well,
were not thinking about it.
I think you're doing the right thing. I think that's good. It's like, yeah, I don't, I waste, I hate to say it, but I get up in the morning, you know, I watch the sports stations,
Me too.
it's like terrible news on all the other shit. Then I start playing I go down and play I have coffee and a little something, and I practice my flute. So I have to do that first. It takes a long time. It's not too easy. And then when I get to the saxophone, I spend all my time trying to get my sound properly. I try to. I'm working so hard on. I'm probably wasting a lot of time, but that's what I do. For
Yeah, well, I think you sound,
so I mean, to me, it's important, to do that. And when my sound is not cool, I turn on there's a recording of Don Bias with a Hot Lips Page band. And they da 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 da. You know, it's really bad. This guy comes in on the bridge. It's the most beautiful tenor saxophone sound. It's like the perfect tenor sound. Every
What's the tune?
you know, you know, uh, these foolish things. When you get to
Those things.
the bridge, you know, and it's a G minor thing. It's like it's so beautiful and transcends generation or whatever. It's just like a perfect saxophone sound. So if I'm having a problem, uh, that I can hear that and I'm cool. Like, it sets me in a good direction. I had a I had a student I taught for about 3 years. I didn't never charged him, and he got really good. He became like a star in his high school. You know, he
Mhm.
high school he was, and he got a scholarship to the new school. And he'd come over and say, "Man, what happened to your sound, Michael? Your sound is not happening." Well, it's a bad read. I said, well, maybe. I said, who are you studying with? Well, I'm studying with oh shit. It's like how come I get a blackout? It's like Chris
Potter.
what?
Chris Potter.
Like who is probably the best of all the that generation. He's really good. And I said, well, I said, what did he show you? He said, oh, no, he just plays for me. He tried to copy his licks, you know. Does he ever talk about sound or how to get a sound? No, they don't never talk about it. So I said, so I played for him. I played like like about 2 minutes. I played, and then he picked up his horn, and he was cool because nobody talks about sound production or how thinking about how to visualize a sound, how to get physically get a sound, and
I think that's very important. I think I stress playing melodies.
yeah,
Just being able to play a melody, like what Lester said. When someone, I believe it was Sonny Stitt, was walking around the bus or backstage playing, "Hey Prez, what do you think of this?" And Prez says, "Yes, yes, lady, but can you sing me a song?"
yeah. Where's the story? He said the lady Stitt too. That was wrong.
Lady Stitt, yeah, can you tell me where the story and sing me a song? So I find that that's what's a problem with a lot of the younger cats. That I mean, that they don't have this concept. When we heard Coleman Hawkins, when we heard Al Cohn, when we heard those kind of players regularly, one of the strongest things was the ability to play a melody that made you feel. You
Yeah,
know,
well, it's like you turn on, you go on Facebook, and the guys are demonstrating mouthpieces or horns or reeds. All they're doing is playing lots of eighth notes. And I said, well, how do you, what good is that? If you're supposed to demonstrate the sound of the instrument, the sound, and, not how efficient it is, how you can, how you can articulate the sound is the key. Like, you hear two notes of Jug, like, and then you forgot
right?
everything he did playing, oh, how great he was. But the one Snooky Young, I used to play with, he used to play in bands, all these guys are playing a million notes on the trumpet. Snooky would play one beautiful note with a great little nuance at the end, and you forgot all those notes that these guys played.
Right, which Judd could do too. With just
Yeah, you can tell a story with just a couple of notes. I mean, it's just you can put a lot of information into a note. I remember I did a gig at Birdland once and playing an introduction to a tune, and I wound up on the middle D on the tenor, and I just
on the which D tenor? I'm sorry,
on the middle D on the tenor,
middle D on the tenor. Yeah.
it's like, and I tried to put as much information as I could into that one note. And it was another one of those weird moments, and I could feel the audience come into my note. It was like they were like these spirits were sucked into that note. It was a
Uh,
true Zen experience, and like
you
it's,
know, yes, that I know exactly what you mean because I remember Red Mitchell telling me something very interesting along the same lines. He was saying that we were talking about influences, and he said, "Well, you know who my biggest influence is?" I said, "No, I mean," he said, "It's not a bass player." I said, "Really? What are you thinking about?" He said, "Sarah Vaughan." I said, "Really? I mean, of course, but what's your reason?" I didn't have to ask him. He said, "Because she inhabits each note."
Yeah.
He said, "When you're playing," he says, "a goal that he has in mind is every time he plays, I want to inhabit every note I play. Just when you think the note can't get more beautiful," he said, "with Sarah, for instance, you think she's hit this perfect note and it's so beautiful, and yet it goes somewhere.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it gets even more beautiful."
That's very well put. I would think about that because I think that's very nice.
I like that too. I thought you'd like that.
Yeah, that's like that makes a lot of sense because now like I've been trying for years to play less notes and so I don't succeed. Oh,
You and me both.
like, and I can, I'll be cool, and then all of a sudden I say, why did I do that? Man? Why do I, and nowadays it's like all the relatively younger people, they're all playing like, if they don't play a lot of notes, nobody pays any attention to them. And it basically, if they played less notes, maybe they would pay attention to them because
Oh,
contrast, but it's like, it's, it's so, it's like, I figure by the time I get as old as I am now, I would be forced not to play so many notes. I could really, I mean, I really crystallize the shit. Like I did an album with John Lewis once, a duet album,
wow, I'd like to hear that.
and like it's like I would think I was 40 at the time, and relatively young, experience wise, but play with him. His shit is so crystallized. Doesn't play an extra note,
No, he
nothing.
doesn't.
And here I'm playing
Like a
this.
modern bassy sometimes, almost.
It's
I
like
mean, you're
it's like yeah,
similar lineage.
or irritated with all the shit left out, like,
Yeah,
but
right.
like when I'm playing, I said, man, I first of all I have to be real soft because he's soft. I had to keep my head in the harp and the piano so I could hear him, clearly. I had to play soft, and if I played too many notes, I would sound really stupid. So I had to be careful, and it was quite a learning experience, and it was really, you know, I really learned a lot, and I still to this day I would like to be able to play crystallize my shit more, play less notes, and I'm still working on it. I might get it by the time I'm 90.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same way.
But by the time I'm 90, I might get it close to that. And oh, I thought of a real funny. I used to go hear Konitz a lot. Like I'm playing at the half note and stuff.
Yeah, I remember you there.
Anyway, I go there and like first set, like nothing is happening at all. It's like nothing.
He's shaking hands with the horn.
No, he's playing, but nothing's happening.
Right, that's what I mean. But it's like he's acquainting himself with
I
it.
haven't found it. And then maybe the last set, something really beautiful happens, and it was worth it. You waited around, and like I had reason I was playing in Spain, in Madrid, in this place called Cafe Central.
I know Central very well, sure.
So start at 10:15 and hang out before. Anyway, hanging out with my bass player, and he had a girlfriend, a French girl, and we're drinking all this, uh,
Spain, yeah.
this brandy, Anyway, so this girl says, "Well, let's go to the flamenco club. It's like 2 blocks away." Sure, let's go. Okay, she describes. So we go to the flamenco club. Smoky, nothing good to drink, terrible stuff. And she says, "Well, you have to go downstairs." So you go, if you want to hear some music, you go downstairs, and they only allow gypsies and girls down there. And you sit around and you wait and you wait and you wait and you wait, and then sometimes something happens. I said, it sounds like a Lee Konitz gig to me. You know?
Yeah. I mean, Rollins too. It's like that. I think when somebody's really improvising, you kind of pays your money, you takes your chance in a
Yeah,
certain way. I mean, I try to be, my ambition is, and I haven't achieved it, but I'm trying for real improvising and not so much waiting for it, and not so, um, not real improvising, you know, with a minimum of groping. If I can get there, I haven't gotten there,
it's
but
really hard to do, and like it's like Lee could do it. He could get away with it. Like he could get away with that set where nothing at all is happening, or that or even a whole night. Like if I don't know about you, but if I did that, it wouldn't have. Nobody would tolerate it. Because
I feel that way too. I mean, though I do it. I mean, I have
tolerate.
done it, but I never do it intentionally. It's just sometimes I just don't want to fall back on what I have, and I'm determined. As I get older, though, Lou, I found the middle ground with that much better. But in my 30s and 40s, I would have nights where it was on, and I mean, I knew it was happening. And then maybe the next night, it took me a minute to get into it again, because I didn't want to play the stuff from the night before was still fresh on my mind or something. I don't know the reasons, but
My problem is like here. I don't know if how you feel about this. My concert I had a thing. I would play for them now. Like we play two, three, even four choruses. Like Bird said, you play more than two, you're practicing. Whatever. I play a few choruses, and then I could stop. On the other hand, I'm thinking about preparation for tomorrow. So here I play an extra three or four, five choruses, which were really in the pure world are not necessary. But it's I guess it's a form of practice, preparing or trying to find something, find something interesting that might happen. So it's like it's for the now, like two or three courses, that's it. And then another two or three or four courses for tomorrow. And that's I don't know if that's a good thing. It's good in one way and bad in another way. So it's kind of immature, but on the other hand, when you've grown up with trying to expand your shit, trying to reach another level, not just technically, but physically and musically or whatever, however you look at it, and especially growing up, hearing guys play for like Sonny playing forever.
Joe Henderson too was, you know, invitation was the whole set. Sometimes,
So anyway, it's like, uh, so I don't know. I still probably do it to a certain extent. I could stop after, and then say, okay, that's it. And then, but now I still feel the need to push it, to keep on pushing it so that I'll be better than tomorrow. So that's just form of practice, I guess. It's not, but people kind of, and then if you play like one or two courses, people say, "Oh, what's wrong, man? Are you tired?"
right? It's like that. But
I'm
well, this illness has been an interesting thing for me because I have still quite a bit of energy. I can play, three good choruses of Cherokee, and then I'm tired. I mean, physically blowing, I can't blow. I don't feel I can stay strong that long. So the thing is that it's good. In a way, I can do it in two or three choruses and actually get to the essence. And in some weird way, um, the disability or my limitation became my strength.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a funny
That's
thing. Like,
that's turning a negative into a positive, basically. And like
yeah, well,
so you're crystallizing the music. You're forced to, and it's good. So that's another kind of discipline. Like I remember doing this big concert in Denver, all-star concert. Zoot was basically the leader. All Ray Brown, all these guys, and like Ruby Braff was on. Zoot would say, okay, we play this tune by two choruses apiece. Ruby would say, I got one.
I got one.
Okay, next tune, he said, okay, we play one chorus apiece. Ruby said, I got a half. So no matter what Zoot said, Ruby volunteered less because in his mind, I could say more, and in half a courses, and you dumb MFs can do for 2 courses, you know,
Sort
whatever.
of reverse competition.
Yeah. So meanwhile, when these concerts usually go over, this one went short. But anyway, yeah, it's interesting to to think about that because you know I would
Well,
like to. I was thinking that I would have some kind of a not exactly a disability, but a disability of age to force me to to do the 3 courses of Cherokee, whatever, and not to go beyond that. But it hasn't hit yet. I might have to breathe a few times. I have to take more breaths, where I didn't have to take as many breaths, but now I can do the Oscar Pettiford breathing technique, that kind of
really nice.
short breath, but I haven't utilized that more. But anyway, I guess it all comes. It's like a journey, man. Like uh, it's Vincent asked me to write something for a quote, collecting quotes for his book, and I said, well, I heard this. My philosophy is you can't win, but you can try, and that's about.
You can
That's
try.
all. Well, you're not going to win, but it's the effort, and you might get to a positive area at least and make some contribution. But it's Zoot. What is Zoot? Someone asked Zoot at the bar, "Hey Zoot, what's the hardest instrument to play?" And he said, "Music is a hard instrument."
Music is a hard instrument.
Yeah, Zoot was kind of the opposite of Al. I mean, intellectually, but he when he said something, it was usually cool. I'm I'm very lucky. Uh, Louise has became a friend of mine. She's been very nice to me. Zoot's wife.
I met her a couple times. She's just a wonderful person.
She actually sent me a couple of Zoot's mouthpieces
Really.
and a box and a half of reeds.
Oh,
And
what number reed did he play anyway?
well, she sent me. She had 3.5 brown box uh, Rico and a medium hard Lavaz. And when I knew him, he was playing, I think Rico Royal or something. His equipment was really light. I couldn't play his. I overblew his equipment.
Were the mouthpieces were they drill hearts or auto links or
One is, I know his main mouthpiece was a rubber link, but the one she sent me is a Selmer. I think it's a Selmer D, short one, more like Joe Henderson, please, and a Meyer. I think a Meyer 5 or 6. But it's so great to have them, I mean,
oh
and,
that's beautiful. Yeah.
and then she gave me this gold saxophone, and her nephew was an astronaut, and he took it into outer space, and came back and comes back with a certificate that this little figure was in outer space. So I have the certificate
And
and
what is it exactly that went to outer space?
hmm,
What did he take to outer space?
little gold saxophone thing,
Oh, like a pin. Yeah.
kind of thing. I could show it to you, but so I had it framed, a special frame. And I mean, I used to do these yearly Zoot gigs at the Kitano Hotel and stuff, and tribute to Zoot. Not that I just try to play a couple of tunes he played and capture a little spirit. Bill Crow would do it. He was
Yeah, I remember that.
with that club fold. And then they used to have a Zoot Fest, and
Pennsylvania, right? Oh no, that was the Alcone Festival.
yeah, and they stopped doing it. Everybody started dying. I guess the audience died.
But it's died too. Yeah.
So I don't know, but that was fun to meet people, and it was.
I was very proud one night at the Grand Parade de Jazz. I was there in '75, and that was the year Chet Baker got very mad, and he and Zoot had this big, terrible argument that was kind of famous and all this stuff. But one of the things was I'd known Zoot since, '68 when I met you, and Zoot really found that I had grown quite a lot. I was now not a kid anymore. I mean, I was 23, but I had grown, and Zoot was proud of me. And Zoot said, "Come on, man, we'll hang out." So I hung out a lot with Zoot, and we'd hang out every night. He'd go up to my room in the hotel, and he'd say, "You got any booze in your room?" And the first night, I didn't realize that that they charged you
Yeah.
when they gave you the hotel. I thought, now I'm in the big time. So so Zoot drank my refrigerator, and then what we did together, and then Zoot would say, "Your room's a mess, kid. Let's go to my room," and we would talk till the sun came up every day, and then we played a few concerts together, and it was like you and I talking now. We just kept going, and just enjoyed each other, and Zoot told me funny stories and all about his life, and we felt very close. So when I got back to New York, Zoot was playing at a club called Hoppers on 6th Avenue, and I went to sit in with him. I went to hear him, and then he asked me if I had my horn, and I did, as I always did. And then he said, "Come on over to my table, and my wife is here. You can meet my wife." And one of my proudest moments was when he said to Louise, "This is the young cat I was telling you about." I went, "Oh boy."
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, it's special, really special. She's, she has a few physical problems now, but I try to stay in touch because she's such a nice person.
I hear he did landscaping. He had like these little sculptures that he would do
Yeah,
in the garden, something that he would do with plants or something.
I don't know, man. At least he had an avocation, man.
He had something. Well, as I
No,
told Randy Brecker too, Randy said he didn't have any hobbies. I said, Hank Jones, I mentioned to Hank that his brother Thad, I was told, was an excellent pool player and could have actually been a pool hustler had he wanted to be. I didn't know that. And I said to Hank, "Do you have any hobbies?" And Hank, with his serious demeanor, said,
no.
"I have no hobbies." The piano is it.
Kind of it takes over, Yeah, yeah. I have no hobbies, and I was thinking about that, and so.
Well, you like sports, though, right?
Hmm?
Do you follow the Yankees, and do you follow?
Well, I mean, I follow the Mets.
You follow the Mets. I'm sorry about that.
I follow the Mets and the Knicks.
Uh-huh.
That's like it's not that I'm not. I just like to watch it, and I don't know that much about it, but it gets me out of worrying about reads and stuff.
I got two quick stories for you, actually. One is interesting. One night I went to hear Sonny when the half note moved uptown,
Mhm.
which was the classic example of the Peter principle.
That's bad. Yeah, I played him. Yeah.
I did too. I played with Attila. Our friend Attila Zoller was playing solo guitar, and he asked me if I would come and play duets with him. He'd give me $10 a night just to come and play because he felt lonely. He said, "Could we play duets?" And I went every night. So we played a week opposite Sonny and a week opposite Dizzy. I played those 2 weeks with Attila, and it was kind of interesting that I knew that whether they were listening to me or not, I didn't know, but I knew they were there. So it was kind of interesting. Moody was there with Dizzy and everything. But anyway, so we're one night I came in and I wasn't playing with Attila, and Sonny was at the half note, and Mike Cantorino, who was one of the owners, the half note. For those who don't know that, said, "Bobby, if you want a table, I got to charge you because we really need to make money at this place. We're losing our shirts." He said. So I liked when Sonny was playing. I liked to sit at a table so I could be close to his sound, and he walked around a little bit and close to the bandstand and kind of observe him better than sitting at the back of the bar. So I said, "You know what? I'll do it." So I paid the cover, and then it was kind of my last money. I was really broke that year, but I did it. And Sonny was having one of those nights where he was playing something, and then he was looking up to the heavens and going, "Oh, really?" And he was not happy with what he was playing, and so then I'm sitting there, and I don't know how I looked, but I was a little disappointed because he was kind of groping, and it was interesting always to hear him anyway, but nevertheless. So he walks over to my table, and he's playing this a cadenza, and he blows this amazing thing right at me, like right in my ear, takes his horn out of his mouth and goes, "There's something the matter."
Oh, some funny shit, man.
And the last thing I was going to tell you was a story when we were talking about melody playing and this kind of thing, and you play beautiful melodies. I love that about your playing. I've always loved it. Plus, on flute, we didn't even get to that. You get because you were a flute player first, maybe you get the real, true sound of the instrument. I really hear a tone. It's something obviously that you've thought of, and it's a real flute sound. But Chet, one night when we were in Detroit at Baker's Keyboard, I had been practicing a lot in New York with Mike Brecker. We used to play until we fell asleep, literally, with the horns. We'd catch a few hours and keep playing, and we would do that, a marathon practicing. And I was playing, like doing my 6 to 8 hours a day of practicing, and then playing gigs at night and playing jam sessions and just living like that. And so I had gotten where I was really getting experimental on the stand. And so I was playing long solos. And Chet whispers in my ear the first set. He says, "Bob, do you think you might keep your solos down to only twice as long as mine?" And I said, "Sure, Chet, I'm sorry." So between sets,
taking the horn out of your mouth. Yeah.
I'm practicing in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And Chet says in a Boris Karloff voice, like, "Bob, this is not a research laboratory." And so finally, the end of the night, the last set, we were doing 3 sets. The third set, I finally behaved myself. Reasonable length solos, and, I kind of blended in a little more, didn't, whatever nonsense I was playing before, I got better, it came better. So in the morning, we're having breakfast, and he looks up over his eggs easy, and I said, "Chet, eggs over easy." And I said, "Chet, I'm sorry, man, I don't know what got into me, but I mean, I really was, playing. I think I finally got it toward the end of the night, though. I think I really behaved myself. Hey, thanks for pulling me in." And he said, "Well, Bob, I'll tell you this. Most people only hear 3 things in someone's playing: how loud, how high, and how fast. And you're a very gifted young man. And if you wanted to, you could be at least, if not at least one of the loudest, highest, and fastest cats out there. But were you to do this, I would be disappointed, because I would have hoped that you would have opted for beauty."
You would what?
You would have opted for beauty. You would opt for beauty, which I thought was the most beautiful.
Yeah, well.
And that's your legacy too, Lou. I mean, every time when I hear you play, that's your goal. That's what you're aiming for is for the beauty. You're not aiming to impress. I mean, you have virtuosic technique and you have all that stuff, but there's something beyond that and deeper than that.
There's something you said before when people can hear what you're not playing, in the sense that you have you're not letting it all hang out when you're holding something back, that you can kind of feel that the reserve that you could have, as opposed to just letting it all hang out and doing everything, so those are a little interesting things to work on, I guess. So I have to keep going, and I'll get it right. I'll let you know. I'll call you up.
I'll let you know. Maybe we'll get together, play some duets one day. That would be wonderful if we.
But anyway, I guess you have enough of this,
I think we've got 2 episodes here.
Well, whatever.
And I'd like to thank Lou, thank you, and thank everybody. Let everybody know how much we're grateful for this.
Whoever you are.
Thanks to Jessie Kaiser.
Yeah, Jessie, your business.
All she does.
Anyway, take care of Bob.
Yes, Lou, thank you very much.
You can go on.
We'll I hope we'll talk soon. I really enjoyed getting to know you this way.
Same here. Take care of yourself.
Thanks, man.
Pleasure.
Okay.
Bye-bye. And I'd like to thank everybody who tuned in. Thanks for watching. And if you could give us a like, we'd appreciate that. And it's, or subscribe to at Bob Mover Jazzability. It helps us more than you might realize. Once again, thanks, Lew.
Thank you. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
God bless everybody. Bye-bye.